Let me explain the video you're about to see. So what I set out to do is I wanted to make a pillbox out of like 3D printing. This is something I've tried to do before. I'm not going to reveal whether or not it worked. I mean, I guess you're seeing a bit of the design here, but what I want to do is I want to show you the process of how I thought about it and modeled it and some of the 3D printing and basically what I think is a pretty interesting process. So that's what you have in store for you, a relaxing video. And I should mention that this tutorial or video or whatever you call it is sponsored by Squarespace. I'm going to be talking about them a bit later in the video so that you get some you get to see some progress before we talk about them, but that will be roughly halfway through the video, and excited we are to talk about them. But yeah. Thank you for watching, and let's get into it. I don't care who you are or what walk of life you come from, what crevice or rock you crawled from underneath of. Whoever you are, you take some kind of pill, whether that be a psychiatric pill or a vitamin, or maybe you just like crunch some Oreos and put it in a pill and eat it. There's something that you eat as a pill, whether it be medicine, food, I don't know. And if this is something that you're taking daily, like you have to eat it every day of the week, and you have your like pill box that says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, yada yada, these things kind of suck. I don't like them. You can't fit them in your pocket, and it doesn't feel good to have not made it myself, because I figure I've 3D printers now. I've 2 of them. Why not just make something? That is the story of this video. I know, compelling. Pillboxes. Viewer retention has never been higher. It's at 300%. Okay, so let me tell you my grand plan. So you might be thinking that I'm going to do the pillbox like every other. It's basically going to be a rectangle subdivided into like 7 components, 1 for each day of the week. Not only is that like suboptimal in the sense that it's like very long and I don't think it would fit in your pocket, but it's not very like structurally sound, right? Like if you have a long rectangle and you apply some force right here, it will like snap in 2 pieces. So it's best to get this like closer to like a square where it's uniform on the XY plane. But then of course, 7 days in a week, what's the issue with that? That is a prime number. So there's no way to divide this, like make it a 3x2 grid, right? That would be 6 components. Or you could like do a 3x3, that would be 9. No matter how you cut it, 7 is prime, which is the issue. So what I'm electing to do is let's just forget about the rectangle, and instead let's maybe go for like a circular design that maybe has these like wedges. Maybe the issue with wedges is if your pills are a certain shape, they wouldn't like fit in here. But instead of changing the pillbox, maybe consider changing the meds you take to accommodate the pillbox. Don't think about what the pills can do for the pillbox. No. Do think about what the pills can do for the pillbox, not the pillbox for the pills. Anyways, okay, so I'm going to add a circle. That circle is going to have 7 components for 7 days of the week. We call that a septagon. It's a very religious number. It's a very lucky number. That's the number of Harry Potter books, but not movies, because you got to make more movies than there are books to extend how many sales you can get. And do you notice that now there's a Hunger Games movie that I don't think anybody really asked for? Although I'm kind of out of the loop. I don't even remember what the author's name is. I read all 3 books. There are 3 when I was in like middle school. As far as I'm aware, the Snake and Viper, Mockingjay and Viper, whatever it is, thing wasn't released, or maybe it is, like, I don't know. I'm out of the loop. Anyways, I have no fucking idea how we got on that. Anyways, F to fill. So now we have our septagon, and what I'm thinking, so I could either maybe do like a poke faces, which divides this into 7 triangles, which is fine, or maybe let's do like an inset. So we have like nicer compartments where each one's like a quadrilateral. I think I like that, and maybe we can use the centerpiece for like structural support. So I'm going to select these 7 components. I like to use I, that's my trick, I twice for that double inset, and I'm gonna go for something that's big enough for pills. Of course, it depends on how big this overall print is, but also I want these like gaps or these like reinforcements, you can think of them, to be wide enough that if I was to put this in my pocket, I'm gonna be printing it out of PLA, which is this stuff. It's not the hardest stuff in the world. It's kind of brittle. So you want to be mindful of your design is what I'm trying to say. I'm going to take these segments and I'm going to extrude them downward. So this is going to be our like compartments. I guess they don't need to be that deep, right? Like, again, how many pills are you taking? Maybe adjust this tutorial to your pill taking needs. Those with more pill needs, we'll need a more intense pillbox. So F to fill this on the bottom, and that should be a pretty good design. Again, I want to really reinforce this in the sense that the walls are thicker than like a millimeter or something like that. And I think that should be pretty good. I want to avoid wasted material where possible, so I don't want to make it like too thick. And what I like about this design is it should be very like printable without like any supports. I've had issues with 3D supports recently. I have the Cudi printer, I have a Ender printer. None of them make supports that I like breaking off. And apparently you're supposed to use these like pliers and stuff to peel them off. But this is what you get, broken pieces, which I'm not a fan of. Anyways, we need a lid for this, right? Because this will hold the pills, but it won't necessarily, you understand what I'm saying. So maybe what we could do is we could make like either individual lids, or would it be cooler to have the entire Septagon lid that you could take on and off? And maybe we can exploit this inner Septagon right here to add like more, I don't know, adhesion in some sense when you close it. I'm not sure. As was foreshadowed in the beginning of the video, or as was promised, whatever you want to call it, we're going to be talking about the sponsor of this video, which is Squarespace, which is basically a website that lets you make websites, and I've had them as a sponsor for a long time, so I talk about them a lot, but it is a service that I legitimately use for my website, cgmatter.com, because the whole point of Squarespace is taking the barrier between you having an idea for a website and you actually realizing and publishing that website. They take that gap and make it really tiny, because one thing that would like make me not do it, not make a website, is any of this like HTML. I'm sure there's like other things involved with it. I'm not really sure, but that's the point. I don't want to know. I just want to move around blocks. That's what Squarespace does. It's a dead simple interface to make websites. They want me to tell you about 3 things that exist in Squarespace, so I'm going to do that. The first of which is a analytics or demographics based tool that basically gives you the data that basically tells you month by month or day by day or whatever, how many people are going to your website and where are they coming from, and in some sense, why are they there? This is important to get people onto your website and knowing the information about that. And then once you're actually talking about the website, a second feature I'm going to talk about is that they have a content library, which you can think of as a drive in the cloud that keeps all your files there. So I don't need to keep uploading and finding the file for my CG Matter logo, or if I delete an image and I need it later, it's all going to be on that content library. And finally, this is the third feature I'm going to talk about, and it is the one that I've already talked about, so I'm sneaking in an easy one. It is that designing websites is as intuitive as putting blocks together. I think of it as the Lego of making websites. I don't know if they want me mentioning other brands like Lego in the thing, but this is a non-competing company. We're okay with that. So if you want to make a website, you can head over to squarespace.com, make a website, and when you're ready to take that thing and launch it live, get your thing started, you can use my link in the description. It will be down there, and you can save 10% on your first purchase of a website or domain. So if you're in the website business, this is the thing that I guess you want to listen to. And now let's get back to our 3D printing thing. Thank you for listening to this segment, and let's continue. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these faces that I'm interested in, Shift D to duplicate, move them up, scale on the Z by 0 to like center them. This is going to be my cap, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I make this one smaller. It's kind of hard to tell what I want to do with this. It's gonna merge by distance. I kind of don't know what I want to do with this, so I guess we'll figure it out as we go. It's almost like it's supposed to be like an inverted version of it somehow. Anyways, I think if we select all of these and give them a bit of thickness so that they're actually like a lid that you can imagine goes inside the slot, and then we were to somehow connect these at the top, that would be like ideal, right? I ain't no designer. Maybe it makes sense, maybe it don't. Actually, before we do that, I do know that we're probably going to have an issue with like the pieces not being able to actually go into each other because they're the exact same like dimensions. So the friction would take over, right? It's like trying to slide 2 perfect pieces together, which sounds satisfying in your head, but in reality, I don't think it works. So we're gonna scale by individual origins, which does this. And maybe let me scale it by like 2% down, so by 98%. So this is before and after, just like a tiny little thing, such that now I can do like one more round of extrusion, and this one's going to be to like connect these pieces to each other, because again, I want all of this to be one component. I'll show you what I mean in a second. So these two, there's a nice operation for what I want to do. I think it's called bridge edge loops. Yes. This is going to be our like top support platform. I feel like once I get into my like tutorial mode, where normally I like plan these things out before I talk about them, but recently I've been trying to put in, not in a bad way, just in a, I think it's better as a result anyways. I've been trying to put in less like thought effort into what I do, because it kind of ruins the creative process a little. It makes me like not enthusiastic about the idea if I'm only thinking about how I want to package the idea. So what I'm trying to say is that I'm not sure what I'm saying. Okay. So we are going to take these two edge loops, and I believe there's no reason we shouldn't be able to bridge these as well. Weird topology, but okay. And I'm thinking now we just like, well, if we like separate these components, but if we like put them together, they should make a nice fit just like that, okay? Final modifications, I'm going to make the lid a bit thicker. And then finally, you see we have this like septagon extrusion over here. I got to make sure that there's a similar thing on our thing. Good job, Tom. Okay, so I'm going to take this. I don't really know how much I inset it by, so I'm just gonna, I guess it's better to underdo it, right? Because then it will fit for sure. Either way, I'm gonna do something like that and make some depth. Again, it doesn't matter if it's not perfect as long as these pieces like cooperate with each other. So let's actually see if that's the case, right? So I can take this component, which by the way, you hit L. L is for linked, and we can separate by components, or separate by selection would actually be correct. Been stuck in geometry nodes land. That's why I said separate by component. That's actually a very familiar node for some of us. But okay, so now we have two separate components, and I think when we put these together, that is a sensical design that should be 3D printable without any trouble. I do want to be able to kind of tell if these fit together, and I'm trying to think about what the best way to do that is. Maybe we can do some kind of like X-ray mode. This is what lets you see through pieces, although it's really hard to tell if this is working or not. I mean, I think it should, right? Because like technically we scaled down what we needed to scale down. It's just really hard to tell. I think if we use shadowing and cavity as much as we can, we're going to get some like more visible definition in what we're doing. The main thing I'm concerned about is kind of like these bridges over here. I just want to make sure that they kind of cooperate with our design. I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's no reason this shouldn't work. It would just waste some print time if it didn't. Either way, now that we have two components, I'm just going to put them side by side since it makes sense to print these. I mean, I guess separately in a sense, but more so like adjacent to each other where neither one is printed together, right? So I'm gonna put these on the floor, something like that. And I'll be honest, it worries me a little that there's all this like weird facetting over here. I wonder if this is actually bad geometry or if it's just like a shading error. And I think I can test that by trying to dissolve faces, which it really didn't like. I don't think that's a good sign. Okay, so maybe we can scale this by 0 on the Z. Okay, that seemed to flatten it out. And then let's see if we can like do a limited dissolve. Okay, so that is much nicer geometry. I'm glad I checked on that. So this is my print. I'm gonna give it a name. Pillbox. It's going to sell millions. So that's the thing. And I guess before we print it, since we have our design, this is a good opportunity to add like design elements if we want to do any that still cooperate with our print, like putting in an insignia or something like this. I don't know. I mean, anything we cut away from it is basically going to reduce its like rigidity. So I think honestly, this is like optimal. Although I do want to add some little pieces of glamour. You know what? I'm doing it. Screw it. So easy glamour is I'm going to add in a Boolean modifier, which that is not. No, it is, but I meant bevel. That's the issue. A bevel modifier with a lot of segments, which you can see kind of like rounds this out. But if we only do that slightly, technically it uses less material. We do run into the issue where now we get some weird like n-gons and stuff like that. But if we ignore it, I mean, it's a cooler looking mesh. So before, after, I'm going to keep it and just hope it doesn't break anything. I just tested, and if you bring this angle number down, it seems to clean things up a bit. I never really understood the bevel modifier, and I don't think I really have a desire to. So I'm going to shift click. Here's a little trick I learned in the trade of the Blender circus, and that is hitting Control. So here's what I'm saying. I want this bevel modifier to go to my other object. Here's a quick way to do that. I select my intended object. I shift click the active object that has this modifier. Control L will let us link our modifiers. So you see right now, we now have a bevel here that was applied. And the cool thing is it has the same like values of offset and all that is what I was trying to communicate. Okay, so let's try to reduce this footprint as much as possible. So if I line these up so that these lines are like parallel to each other, we can get a bit closer, which is good. We don't want to get them so close that they actually get like stuck together, but that's pretty good. It's a pretty big footprint, but I guess it really depends on how big we want this to be. And if we consider this as one unit now, because I do want to print a single object, I can Control J. So now that they're a single object, we want to think about the scale of this, right? So just thinking about this piece individually, because again, this one goes on top, what should the footprint of this be? Well, a pill is usually like 1/2 inch, it seems. So if a pill is like laying down here as 1/2 inch and we want room for like 2 of those, maybe this should be like 3 inches wide, if not a bit more, maybe 3.5 inches wide. So what I'm saying is if we go to our units, go to Imperial, so I'm going to do this in inches. And then in the N menu, I can go to my object, which yes, is now in inches. I like to take the scale and uniformly scale it this way so that we preserve the proportion, but we can kind of see when, let's say, the like Y dimension or something like that becomes 2 or 3 inches. So just like that. So let's monitor what we did over here, by the way. So what this is saying is that our long dimension, that's this one, is roughly 7 inches, which is quite a bit, but what are you gonna do? You could separate it into 2 prints, but that's fine. Our like main dimension, since again, this has like a square footprint, so this is the main one I care about. This Y-axis seems to be 4 inches across, which seems a bit much. Let's see if we can get away with a little less, but not so little that, you know, we can't fit pills in here. And this is saying that it's now 1/2 inch tall, which I feel like is definitely tall enough for a pill. Just to be on the safe side, I'll go closer to 4 inches on the Y-axis. So we take this, we position it on the floor, we apply our transforms, and this is our printable object. Okay, so I'm going to not hit F2 like I've been doing over and over and over again. When we 3D print, normally I'm using STL files because I don't know, to be honest. The software I'm using, since I'm going to use the Creality printer for this one, not sponsored, it's just the printer I want to use for this. I'm having issues with the loading the filament with the others. Why? The Creality software accepts OBJs, FBXs, but I've just been trained to export STLs, and a trained dog, I mean, it's trained, but it's harder. It's probably easier to train newer tricks, but the point I was making is not going with my metaphor, so I'm just going to drop it. So with our Creality software, imagine making a print like that lion, so sophisticated. I want to load in our model, which is the pillbox idea. Okay, it looks like that. It's pretty big, you know, relative to the print platform, but I guess, you know, that's just what we get. Hopefully we don't need support. That was the idea behind this, and I want to print this as fast as possible. So I'm using my PLA, and ideally I want to set this like emission, like how much, or the layer height to be as big as possible, because then it's not doing as much detail, which we don't care about, but I don't know what I'm saying. 0.3 millimeters is pretty fast. Normally you have this at 0.2, so I reset this setting. Normally this is set to 0.2, I made it 0.3. What I'm just trying to say is this is fast, so now when we slice this, we have our slices, but what I'm really concerned about is knowing how long the print is. And where is that information? 1 hour, 46 minutes. Oh, that's really not bad at all. I guess it's because most of this is hollow, actually. That makes quite a bit of sense to me. Actually, let's go back a second. I want to modify some settings here because we want this. This is actually a functional item. It's not like, you know, just a cool print of a dragon or something. So I want to make sure this thing is structurally sound. So with the infill of this, normally I wouldn't bring up the density, but in this case, I want to bring up the density. Infill density is basically how much plastic is it using inside the mesh where you can't see it, right? Because there's walls around it. The higher percentage, basically the heavier and the more sturdy it's going to be, but at the cost of taking, you know, more time to print. So I'm going to say that this is good. And other than that, I'll be honest, I don't really understand almost anything else about this. So I'm going to call that good enough, and grid is historically been pretty solid. Okay, so I'm going to save that, and now we're going to slice again. This time the difference should be the infill is a bit denser. Can't tell you if it worked, but you know what? We're just going to hope so. And then we can export this to our SD card where I keep my victims of G-code. Call this Pillbox, and I cannot save to that drive. Okay, I reconnected it, so now it should work. Let's see. I want to export to local on our D drive. Again, I want to call it Pillbox. If it doesn't let me... What do you mean it doesn't let me? Did I, like, lock the SIM card? Nope, it is still writable. It is still writable. I must have it open in another program. I mean, I don't know. I can see the files right here. So, whatever. I'll save it onto the desktop and then move it because I don't know why. Let's see. So I'm going to save it on the desktop and see what the issue with this SD card is. So we've exported it. Let's see what was going on here. So this is our D drive. This is our G code. And okay, I'm going to call that the software's fault. So we're going to take that. We are going to eject it. And then the rest of this is going to be a time lapse. So hopefully we get a pillbox at the end of this. I mean, I was going to say I'm going to go to sleep during this print, but if it's only like an hour and a half and I can increase the print on it. It's right now, it's like 11 p.m. I can stay up till like, I guess like 12:30 or 1 a.m. Yeah, let me try to do that and see if I can get a time lapse for you guys.
I think this piece came out quite nicely, and actually seeing it in a person, I do think at least the amount of pills I have, which is roughly like 3 to 4, should fit in here. Now the question is, the new piece we're making, the lid, will it fit and insert into here? I don't know, but so far, I'm liking how this came out. It's very solid. I'm trying to like bend it hard right now. It is not breaking. On to the second part. Okay, here comes the moment of truth. I have not tested this, I swear, but Septagon piece, Septagon lid, and should be symmetric in many ways. And it doesn't work. Wait, let me try it again. I don't know why it doesn't like snap on. That's weird. Oh, I guess you just have to push it strong enough, but it's still not great. I guess you could just use this as a aesthetic lid. Well, sometimes the plan fails, but this is a cool tray, you know, at minimum. There you go.